The Boston Celtics have been on an absolute tear lately, and it's not just because of their star players. There are subtle signs in their games that are making them impossible to stop. In this video, we're going to take a closer look at these signs and see how the Celtics are becoming a force to be reckoned with. From their defensive prowess to their offensive strategy, we'll break down what makes the team so unstoppable. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn about the signs that are making the Boston Celtics an unstoppable force in the NBA. I feel like it's practically our duty as NBA fans to overreact at times, don't you? The Boston Celtics have undoubtedly seemed to be one of, if not the most dominating team out of the 16, still in the running, based on this sample size, regardless of whether you want to call this an overreaction or not. And although they have indeed seemed this way for the most of 2023, they have also just recently begun to do several actions that we haven't seen them perform during the whole season. And if they continue, it could be difficult to identify someone who has a solution. But I would add that if you guys enjoy postseason basketball as much as I do, please be sure to subscribe and enable your alerts so you never miss a video during the whole of the playoffs. Now that we're back on the subject of the Boston Celtics, let's delve a little deeper into the changes and enhancements we've noticed in their play since they made it to the big dance this year. There are several different aspects of this team on which you could undoubtedly argue that they have the greatest influence, and whether that's the absurd shooting stats and offensive display put on by their top two players, Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, or possibly their elite defensive effort in terms of ball pressure and rim protection. I mean, hell, it could even be the complete 180 approaches we've seen from them, just in the sense of how they're scoring. But I believe it's become very obvious that all of the improvements we've seen from this squad have been some connection to this individual, in one way or another, Derrick White, the real deal. And given the productivity he has produced so far in the playoffs, I'm quite confident that the majority of you at least expected me to mention him in this video. The Celtics' attention to detail in almost completely changing how they use Derrick White as of late is unquestionably one of the main reasons why they are reaching their peak on this side of the ball. Even though the numbers undoubtedly do look great in the box scores and the stat sheets. Now, we also need to understand how the Boston Celtics initially intended to utilize Derrick White when they acquired him last year for us to completely comprehend how well they are utilizing him inside their rotations. Because Derrick White can create his shot and assist others when necessary, it is clear that he can play the guard position for an offense right now. However, when Boston first acquired him from San Antonio, they did so to use him as more of an off-ball guard within this offensive due to how ball handler and guard heavy they already were. And even though we don't need to go too far back in time, it's obvious that Derrick White's only play style wasn't the greatest for him. The majority of people began to predict correctly that Derrick White will likely adopt a very similar position in 2023 as the Boston Celtics also took the effort to add Malcolm Brogdon to their backcourt alternatives this summer. However, based on what we've seen particularly in the playoffs, it is utterly untrue. Under the leadership of new head coach Joe Mazzulla, the Celtics have attempted to limit the number of facilitator choices in the rotation, as opposed to previous seasons when it seemed like there were always many alternatives available. It seems that having a pulse is the sole prerequisite for the team's offensive players to run the offense, and thank God Derrick White has one. That's sarcastic, but instead of having a wide range of playmaking alternatives at their disposal and restricting who can make plays, they're suddenly confounding the living daylights out of opposition defenders, with Derrick White serving as just one example. Now, to be completely honest, it seems simply bizarre to even bring up the possibility that a player like Derrick White might be effective at generating his offensive chances as opposed to depending on some of the greatest defensive magnets in the whole league to do it. However, the more information you have, the more likely it is that Derrick White is who you think he is. Some of his statistics even support this. He was the most efficient player on the squad at pull-ups, driving field goals, and even the infrequent ISO possessions, despite being a tiny NBA player. Additionally, I'll just leave you with the fact that he's had a higher ISO completion percentage this season than his colleague Jayson Tatum, even if some of these figures may not sound all that amazing to you. Even if he succeeded with fewer efforts, credit must be given where credit is due. The fact that Derrick White is succeeding in the areas where he struggled the most last season is what makes him so much more successful this season in this enlarged position. For instance, his career best catch and shoot 3-point percent, again behaving more like an off-ball guard. It's also the greatest of his career. His total field goal percentage by volume this season is also the best of his whole career. It almost seems as if giving Derrick White offensive control in this best of both worlds situation is delivering the squad the most intricate mix of inside and outside scoring we've ever seen. Now, it's no secret, I suppose, that Derrick White's performance is significantly benefiting the whole Celtics squad. The fact that he was a part of 5 of the team's 6 most effective rotations used this season should have been plenty to inform you of this. But apart from the figures, the cinema is where you can feel his influence. Although, as a side note, I'm sure that most of the people viewing this video are well aware of the many lineup combinations Boston likes to throw at opponents, by either going guard heavy and small ball, or going big with their defensive front court combo of both. I'll mention them anyway. Al Horford and Robert Williams, but about his playoffs, I don't believe I've ever seen them capitalise on that opportunity, as they are at the moment. For instance, if you've seen any of these games, you've probably noticed that Boston is almost forcing Atlanta to play small ball, and that the flexibility and quickness of the Celtics have even rendered Clint Capella nearly useless. It is open in the paint more now than it has been for Boston the whole year, because they are challenging Atlanta to match their athleticism. Why, the Celtics have scored far more points in the paint than they did for the duration of the regular season. This is also largely attributable to the fact that the majority of Boston's offensive leaders scored inside as well. Even though the opposition may attempt to go big to halt the inside hemorrhage, Boston just takes advantage of screens and off-ball movement to create wide open shots on the perimeter, where they have thrived for years on end. And amusing as it is to consider all of the exceptional qualities that we have highlighted about this squad, current events show that we haven't fully addressed their outrageous presence on the defensive side of the ball. And if their performance throughout the regular season wasn't impressive enough, their current playoff performance is practically insane. And as some of you may have already suspected, Derrick White's efforts are largely to thank for this as well. But ultimately, the one thing that counts is whether or not this squad will be motivated enough to raise the Larry O'Brien trophy on their own. We'll simply have to wait and see. Nevertheless, you guys, I'm also quite interested in hearing your opinions, so please be sure to let me know in the comments of everything we've seen from the Celtics in this series, what has surprised you the most, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.